is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project, the penultimate episode of the 1999 Project. This is part one of the finale of the project. This is part one. Part two will be coming in the next couple days, and then it's going to be my big video where I have my favorite movies of the year, worst movies of the year, and my over-under, my overlooked and underappreciated films of 99. It's going to be one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I'm going to do it. I still have some movies left, though, so thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe. You all know what to do. Let's round things off. We'll start off rounding things off by taking a look at a film directed by James Mangold. He's pretty relevant nowadays. It's called Girl Interrupted.
And you put the load right on me.
Girl Interrupted, like I said, was directed by James Mangold, who would go on to direct movies like Logan, Ford v Ferrari, and, well, A Complete Unknown, among others, and it starred Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie, among others. It tells the story of a young woman named Susanna, played by Ryder, who commits herself to an asylum for not necessarily the insane, but an asylum nonetheless. She has a lot of big problems going on at home, and so she says she's going there for a, air quotes, short rest. But the short rest ends up into about a year and change of her life, where she ends up making friends with one of the orderlies, played by Whoopi Goldberg, and one of the more rambunctious patients named Lisa, played by Angelina Jolie. I am a big fan of James Mangold as a director. Yes, he directed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I'm not holding that against him because the rest of his filmography is pretty great. Walk the Line, 310 to Yuma, that remake, A Complete Unknown, like I just mentioned, I saw that recently, it's very good. Copland, which has just an embarrassment of riches in terms of acting talent, and Logan and Ford v Ferrari, and the list goes on. James Mangold is very good at his job, and I think Girl Interrupted might be one of his more underrated offerings. Didn't expect much from this, turned out to really enjoy it. And it really comes down to the performances and how the story is just so compelling. Winona Ryder is awesome in this movie. She starts off very confused and just not really knowing what she wants out of life. And seeing her evolution from where she starts out to how she ends up is genuinely something special. And it really comes down to Winona Ryder's performance. She's great. Angelina Jolie is also really good here. I believe she won not an Oscar, but a Golden Globe for this, and it's well deserved because she crushes it as well. Really, this one of the aspects of this movie that I love is seeing Susanna's growth from where she starts out, like I mentioned, where she starts out kind of quiet and not sure of herself, to kind of finding herself and making genuine friendships, and then realizing that some of the friendships, especially her friendship with Lisa, is not what it was supposed to be, and finding out that she needs to fix herself in order to find her way out. Seeing that journey is legitimately fascinating. And it's got a really good cast too, besides Ryder and Jolie. This is honestly some of the best work that Whoopi Goldberg has ever done. She's pretty much a meme nowadays, but I can't lie, she is good here. Brittany Murphy is good in her role as well. Jared Leto is fine. Honestly, he was one of the worst parts of the movie, not because of his acting. I thought acting-wise he was okay. I just thought his plot line being the on-again, off-again boyfriend of Susanna was just kind of there, really. And it doesn't help that he looks like the fifth Beatle. But I digress. I'm going to say something that is pretty controversial, but I think is true. I like this movie a lot more than One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I don't see the appeal of the latter film. I just don't, and I never have. This movie is way better, and I feel like it communicates its message that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was trying to go for, but better. I'm going to give Girl Interrupted a great rating. This is a very underrated offering from James Mangold, and if you have not seen it, I do give it a really high recommendation. Check it out for yourself. But now we pivot away from serious drama about a young woman finding herself to, well, this is the Animaniacs Wacko's Wish.
Wacko's Wish, coming fall 1999.
Animaniacs Wacko's Wish was a continuation of the Animaniacs TV show that ran throughout the mid-90s. It follows Wacko, Yakko, and Dot, who are living in a faux European village, I believe called Tiktakia. Yes, really, that's the name. And Dot falls ill, but they soon discover that there is a wishing star that has fallen out of the sky, and so it's up to them to find it and fending off their usual cast of characters along with an evil king. I've seen a few episodes of the Animaniacs, and I have liked what I have seen. I think it is very clever. I haven't seen the whole thing nor the reboot, so I don't have a super accurate frame of reference. I've seen like 3 or 4 episodes total. What I've seen, I've liked. And honestly, this movie was just kind of there for me. I feel like not nearly as weird or bad as Doug's first movie, but it's same camp as Doug's first movie for me personally, where fans of Doug are probably going to like it. I was not a fan and I just didn't care for the movie itself. I've seen some Animaniacs. I liked what I saw. But ultimately, the movie was just kind of there for me. The animation is the best part. It is gorgeous. It still holds up mostly well to this day. And the camaraderie between Wacko, Yakko, and Dot is really good. And they got the original voice actors back for it, which was a very good thing indeed. The movie is getting a good rating from me. I wasn't super crazy about it, but I recognize the craft behind it. I'm fairly certain that Animaniacs fans are going to love this way more than I do. So if you love this movie and are an Animaniacs fan, you have you more power to you. I have seen a little bit of it and I thought the movie was just kind of there. But this could have been way worse and it was enjoyable for what it was. But now we pivot away from the Animaniacs to a football film starring Al Pacino. It's Any Given Sunday.
Any Given Sunday.
Given Sunday was directed by Oliver Stone. I had to double check. Yes, it is in fact Oliver Stone. And it starred Al Pacino, like I mentioned, as well as Cameron Diaz, Jamie Foxx, LL Cool J, James Woods, among others. It tells the story of the greater problems and machinations of a football team called the Miami Sharks. There's a lot going on in this movie, so to make a long story short, it follows very the very seasoned and tired coach of the team, played by Al Pacino, the star quarterback who's getting long in the tooth but thinks he can still go, played by Dennis Quaid, the new star quarterback who kind of flames out quickly, played by Jamie Foxx, the prima donna running back, played by LL Cool J, the owner who wants to sell the team and move to LA, played by Cameron Diaz, and that's just the stuff that I can remember. Just getting it out of the way here now, the biggest problem that I had with this movie is that there is so much going on here. This is 163 minutes, which kind of taking into account just regular time, it's 2 hours and 43 minutes. My goodness, it did not need to be that long. If you just made it about, say, the coach and the owner, that would have been perfect. Or say the coach and the quarterback, that would have also been perfect. But instead, it's the coach, the quarterback, the owner, the doctor who allows a player to play with a concussion that could have killed the player, played by James Woods. Why did that need to be there? It's overblown and overstuffed in the story department, but then the movie just feels like it was directed by Michael Bay. That's why I said that I had to double check that it was directed by Oliver Stone, because this feels very much like Michael Bay was making Pearl Harbor, because Pearl Harbor came out in 2001, and he was stopping by the set, and he said to himself, Oliver, can I direct a scene, please? There are legit a few scenes that if you were to splice them out and put them into something like Pain and Gain or Bad Boys 2, you would never question it. There's a football player who loses an actual eye in the game, and because the Dallas football team's logo is an eye with a pyramid, like a pyramid with an eye on it, it superimposes the eye pyramid, eye period, so quick it'll make your head spin. And then there's a whole 10-minute section of the movie where it's a montage of Jamie Foxx's character rising to superstardom. What starts out as a music video, it parlays into a commercial for Metrex, which is it's a protein powder supplement. I can't make that up. It seems like it belongs in a Michael Bay film, and I'm not dogging on Michael Bay. I think he can be talented. However, the movie just feels like late 90s, early 2000s Michael Bay, not Oliver Stone. That being said, though, negatives out of the way, the movie does legitimately have a lot of good things going on here. Al Pacino predictably crushes. He has the most famous scene in the movie where he has the whole speech at the end where he's like, I've made a lot of mistakes, but like it's that speech. I'll play a clip of it here.
It's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that itch.
I've seen this speech a lot, and I love it every single time. Al Pacino secretly had a great 99 between The Insider and this. Like, he was bringing it. That's all I will say. Cameron Diaz is surprisingly good in this, and her dynamic with Al Pacino is one of the best parts of the movie for me. Like I said, make it about the two of them, and it would have been perfect. Jamie Foxx was also surprisingly good. Seeing his sort of rise and fall was legitimately really fun to watch. The football action was mostly shot well. Like I said, there's a lot going on here, and not all of it is good, but when it's good, it's great. I'm going to give this a great rating. I do have problems with this movie. It's too long. It's got way too many plot lines for its own good. But when it's on, it's really on, and so I give it a hearty recommendation. But now let's close things out, kind of keeping along with the trend of overstuffed movies, but when it's on, it's really on. It's Man on the Moon.
Jim Carrey brings the legend to life.
Man on the Moon was directed by Milos Forman, who had previously directed movies like The People vs. Larry Flint and Amadeus, one of my all-time favorites. And it starred Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman, a YouTube troll who was born before YouTube existed. Quite seriously, though, Andy Kaufman was one of those comedians that really was ahead of his time. He basically made his living on trolling the audience. He basically made him mad, but in turn also made him laugh, all at the same time. And in his own way, he was kind of a genius. From his Tony Clifton routine to reading the Great Gatsby in a faux British accent and everything in between, Andy Kaufman was just, he was one of a kind. And he's played in this movie by Jim Carrey, and basically it chronicles his beginnings to his time on SNL, to his time on Taxi, which he hated, all the way up through his run in Memphis wrestling, wrestling Jerry Lawler and wrestling women, and everything in between. It covers that. Kind of similar to what I talked about with Any Given Sunday, this movie has a lot going on, and I wasn't a fan of all of it. I feel like if it had just focused on, say, the Memphis wrestling stuff, or his time on SNL, or his time on Taxi, where he was creatively frustrated, I think the movie would have hit way more with me. Thing that saves the movie, though, is Jim Carrey. And it's funny that I just saw Sonic 3 the other night where he plays Dr. Robotnik and his grandfather. So it's funny to think that Jim Carrey is still around and still mostly doing pretty good stuff to this day. But honestly, this is some of his best work. I believe he also won a Golden Globe for this, deservedly so, because the movie does a good job of showing that Andy Kaufman was not just Andy Kaufman. He was actually a human being, and there's an inner turmoil that festers within him of when do you turn it off? Like, when do you stop, like, messing around with people and just be yourself? Like, I don't think Andy Kaufman really knew what to do with that. And I think for the most part, that aspect of it worked. When it gets to the stuff in Memphis with Jerry Lawler, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm here for because I'm a huge wrestling fan, as I'm sure some of you know, and I knew all about the Kaufman stuff going in, and it's painfully obvious some of it has been gussied up for the sake of the story. For example, the wrestling announcer is played by Jim Ross, and Jim Ross was involved in wrestling, but he was never in Memphis. And ironically enough, the guy who called all of those matches named Lance Russell, he was the ring announcer calling, like, introducing Andy Kaufman for that. So nice Easter egg. I mean, Lance Russell was just right there. No offense, JR. Love you. Biggest problem I had with this movie is that it didn't know, like, what to focus on, like, in terms of what aspect of Kaufman's story do you focus on? Because there's a lot to pick from. The Carnegie Hall Show, Memphis, SNL, Taxi. Like, pick one and focus on that era. That's what was frustrating. But Jim Carrey is crushing it. Paul Giamatti's great as his co-conspirator Bob Zamuda. Danny DeVito does a great job, and it's funny that Danny DeVito is in the movie because he worked on Taxi with Andy Kaufman. That was a nice touch. Strong performances, funny at times, and its really own fault is that it falls into a lot of the biopic cliches that we see nowadays. I'm going to give this a great rating, though. I enjoyed this movie way more than I was expecting to. It's overstuffed, yes. Unfocused at times, yes. But when it is on, it's really on. Well, what did you all think of any of the movies I've talked about? Let me know in the comments. I would love to read what you have to say. And the end is near for 99, so stay tuned for all of it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.